and I'm trying to get my voice back. Lana from Unabridged Adventures, and I've done that intro like 3 times because I just can't talk today. So it's probably not a great idea to do a review. Wow. But I'm going to do one anyway, and I'm trying to get my voice back to its normal level because I talk really weirdly in these videos. So basically what I'm doing today, and sorry, I've got my laptop here, but I am doing a review of A Duke by Default by Alyssa Cole, and just love the covers for this series, love everything about this series. This is the Reluctant Royal series by Alyssa Cole, and this is the 2nd book in the series. So if you can't tell, I'm not really someone that uses tabs, and so I don't have any. And so I just went ahead and ripped up some post-it notes because there were so many spots in this book that I just had to mark amazing lines and things that they were pointing out. And I gotta say, that is something that I never do, but this book was just so good that I had to. So for anyone that hasn't read the first one or anything, I'm gonna give a short, just things that if you're interested, then you should check out this series. And then I'm going to go into spoilers. So be warned, I will tell you when spoilers start, so if you want to watch, you're welcome to. There will be spoilers for the first book, and then there will be spoilers for the 2nd book separately, just because I don't know where people are in the series, and I want this video to be accessible to anyone that has or hasn't read the series. So I was trying to find the notes that I made, because I made notes on this at 2 in the morning because I was just so amazed by this book and this author. So the idea of this series as a whole is just people falling in love. It's a romance. It's a contemporary romance. Oh my gosh, it's a contemporary romance, but people falling in love with royalty or royals, falling in love with average people, but there's a bunch of twists and turns throughout it, and it's a very entertaining series. The romance is amazing, and so I absolutely recommend anything by Alyssa Cole. Alyssa Cole is amazing. She's an amazing author. But I did not expect her to cover so many topics in these series. So Alyssa Cole is a Black author, and a lot of these main characters are Black main characters, and so it deals with just everyday racism and colorism and things, and it's very well handled in a romance book. It's not that there's anything wrong with in-your-face discussions about race. That is something that needs to be done. But going into a romance book, that's something that you don't really expect to have a lot, is this amazing social commentary, and she offers amazing social commentary, just slipping it seamlessly into the plot without anything feeling overly aggressive or preachy. Again, not that those are bad things, but just she's doing this in a very well done way. And that's just one reason to read this book. Very diverse characters. You've got a lot of Black women. The first book, it follows a Black woman in STEM and talks about how difficult it is to first of all be a woman in STEM, but also a Black woman in STEM, and what that main character has to deal with. It's great. They talk about how other countries look down on African countries and just Africa as a whole, and think that Africa is a country, sort of. And then the reason that I honestly picked up this series is they have lesbian couples, and then a bunch of just very different characters. I think it's the 4th book where it follows a woman in a wheelchair that is falling in love with a royal and all of that, but just amazingly diverse and not forced diversity and all of that. It feels like real life, because this is actual lives that people live. It's not just something that's very straight, white, kind of boring, sort of. I'm probably not putting this very well, but if you're interested in contemporary romance, if you're okay with sex on the page, and if you want a diverse read, check out this series. If you aren't okay with sex on the page, then maybe look at some of Alyssa Cole's other works. I know that she does a historical romance series. I know that she's put out a thriller. I think it's When No One's Watching. that I've heard is amazing. I haven't gotten around to it yet. I've only read her romance series. Okay, so going into spoilers for the first book. In the first book, we follow Naledi and Tabiso, and they are falling in love. Naledi is a grad student that's trying to become, I can't think of the word, but it's dealing with viruses, and we need more of them right now. And Tabiso is a prince, or is the prince of Sithe. I don't know how to pronounce this country, and that is because the country that it's based off of, like, she took 2 letters, or 3 letters technically, and just switched them in this country's name. And, like, great, she's sticking with, like, the realism and everything, but I honestly don't know how to pronounce it, because the correct pronunciation of the actual country is Lesotho. And so is this Tesulu? Or, yeah, I'm gonna go with Tesulu, because that's the only way they can think of how to pronounce it, but Tesulu, Tesulu, I don't know. He's the prince of this country that in real life is based off of Lesotho. And so they're dealing with a lot of, like, illness in the country, and they were, like, engaged at birth, but then her parents took her to America for some reason, and she's grown up in the foster care system for some reason. And so we're following all of this, and of course they're falling in love, and he's, like, searching for his long-lost bride, and it is so good. The plot is amazing. The family, like, just everything about it is amazing, and I love it. So she has a best friend named Portia, and Portia is not a great friend in this book. Like, she's trying to be there for Letty, but it's just not, they aren't clicking. They aren't in, like, the same part of their lives right now, and Portia's having a difficult time being a good friend to Letty while also dealing with her own issues. And that is something that we see a lot. Like, people can be the best of friends but go through rough patches. And so in the first book, they're going through this rough patch, where Portia is out partying almost every night. She's, like, calling Letty at 2 in the morning whenever she has to get up for work, and they're coming from 2 different classes, where Letty is at school on a scholarship, and Portia has pretty much done a whole bunch of different classes, and she's living off of her parents' wealth. And so they're having to deal with different issues in their lives. And so that's kind of the setup that we get. So the second book follows Portia, and, oh, sorry, I should probably explain. Portia knows that Tabiso is the prince, but he didn't tell Letty that. She thinks he's someone else, and so that's kind of, like, the main conflict, is he doesn't know how to tell her that he is actually a prince and that they were, like, betrothed at birth. And so Portia invites her to a big gala with her where Tabiso is speaking, and so that's, like, the main conflict, and she finds out that Tabiso is a prince in a very public situation with a lot of paparazzi around. And so that was not a great move. And she and Portia have a big, like, I can't think of it as anything but, like, a come to Jesus talk, sort of, where she's like, okay, you have got to work through your own issues, because that was not a good thing to do. Like, if you knew this, you should have sat me down and told me, or told him to tell me. You cannot have this happen in a public place, because now I have to deal with the, like, blowback from all this. Now everyone in the world knows and found out at the same time that I did, and I was completely blindsided. And Portia kind of realizes that she has a lot of work to do in this friendship, and it is absolutely amazing to see her realize that. Of course, the book isn't, like, focused on her, but just their friendship is so realistic, and I love it. So then going into the second book, of course, everything works out well for Letty and Tabiso, but I won't spoil all of that. Okay, so going into the second book, which is A Duke by Default, it follows Portia. And so, of course, Letty and one of their friends is, like, coming in and out and chatting over text, but this follows Portia as she is trying to, like, get her life together. And I love that. She's decided that she's not going to drink anymore because, like, again, nothing wrong with drinking, but for her, it just leads her down a road of like, it's a horrible coping mechanism for her, and she recognizes that, and I'm so proud of her. She's like following her own path, and she has decided that what she really wants to do is she's starting this life of like new Portia by going out and becoming apprentice to a traditional Scottish swordsmaker. I love this. I love this concept. And the fact that she is such like a... she's an amazing woman that is so highly educated, and unfortunately no one takes her seriously. She has a lot of issues with her family where they just don't think that she's good enough, and she deals with a lot of that insecurity in this book, and a lot of realizing that she is good enough, and that if everyone else can see it, why can't she sort of attitude. And it is just absolutely amazing to see her deal with that kind of like imposter syndrome. But also, one of the most amazing things about this book is that in the first book, I got a bit of a hint of this. Like, I noticed a little bit, but in this book, you can really see at the beginning that this girl has some serious ADHD, serious undiagnosed ADHD. And she's struggling to deal with this, and she's always felt horrible because she can't get stuff done, and she's always starting projects and leaving them or getting distracted, and sometimes she just is in like a different headspace than everyone else. And as someone who's... both of my best friends have ADHD, and so I kind of saw that and could see how it was working in their friendship, in like Letty and Portia's friendship, and it just felt so real. Like, it was coming from such a real place, and it's so well done. And the discussions surrounding like disability and being like not good enough and mental illness is all so well done, because the girl that I mentioned that will be in the series more often later is Portia's twin sister, and she is the one that's in a wheelchair because she had an illness in her childhood, and so she was always pitted against Portia, or Portia was always pitted against her, because her sister was always the smartest one and was always able to do all this despite being in a wheelchair. And there's a wonderful part in the book where Portia's talking about how her parents like treated her, or was thinking about it, and she said, like, you know, her sister is always the one that like graduated with straight A's despite, and just leaves it there like italicized period. And God, just the way that she put that was so real, and the way that disabled people are often used as like inspiration, or to make someone feel bad, of like, oh, well, if the person in the wheelchair can do it, why can't you? And it is so real. And so she manages to cover all of this while also having such an interesting plot, because I'm not even going to get into too much of the plot. It was like absolutely amazing. 5-star. The romance, like their chemistry is so good. Like the way that they both work to like build each other up, while also acknowledging that the situation they originally started in is somewhat problematic, and they're doing their best to fix that and take a step back. Like, everything in this book is handled so well, and I love everything about it. Like, this is a 6 out of 5 stars for me, honestly. Like, my rating scale does not go high enough to explain how amazing this book is, because I did not expect to get all of this in a romance. I know it's an issue with like people assuming that romances are just kind of fluffy and don't have any substance, but this book covered so much while also still being really fun and a light read, and just it hit me so hard. The friendships, the like discussion about racism, the discussion about classism, and like how like just this book is amazing, and everyone should read it, unless you're not okay with like sex on the page, in which case I get it, that's your personal like preference, no judgment. But speaking of the sex on the page, it's good, it's hot, like I love it. Just the chemistry between Portia and her like love interest is just so good, and so you see like their chemistry build throughout the book, of course, but you also see how she becomes more of herself and more okay with accepting herself. and like the issues that she has, and like using these coping mechanisms, these healthy coping mechanisms, and recognizing the faulty ones. It's just so good, and it spoke to me on such a deep level, and I cannot say enough good things about this book. I'm pretty sure this has been a super all over the place review, but basically, if you want beautiful, well written, like amazing romance with like a bit of social commentary thrown in there, gosh, just go read everything that Alyssa Cole has ever written. Just do it. I mean, look at the beautiful lesbians. Look at it. Just read it. It's so good. I love everything about this series. Like, even the discussion about royalty and like how everyone thinks up like, oh, it'd be so great. Like, there are real discussions about how difficult that is, and also like, are you mooching off of like your subjects, like living off of taxpayer money and stuff like that? Like, there are some real discussions about real things in this book, but it doesn't feel heavy. And I think that is the thing that I really love about this, is how you don't have to suspend your disbelief. You can look at that and say, yes, that is an issue. Like, the English royalty system, where they're living off of everyone's taxpayer money, is a problem. But they discuss it, and then also discuss how they're going to make it work so that's not an issue. And it is so well done. The characters are so well written. Everyone feels so human. Just, why am I still talking? Go pick it up. They're amazing. She's got a new, like, spin-off series, or like another related series that are just coming out this year, and it is the Runaway Royals. And first of all, that cover is gorgeous. And second of all, just go read it. Read it. If you're interested in romance books whatsoever, read Alyssa Cole's Reluctant Royal series. Like, that's all I can say. Just go read it. Oh, also, I completely forgot to say that, like, in the first 100 pages, I did not like the love interest all that much, because he came off as such kind of like a jerk. But throughout the book, he realizes how much of a jerk that he's been, and does literally everything to fix his behavior. And like, the growth in this book, following both of the characters, like, they're growing together. And that is what I love about this book, is that, like, yeah, he's a nice guy to begin with, but he's kind of a jerk to her. And he deals with that, and he realizes how childish that was. And like, that if he wants to actually be with her, he needs to grow up and be a better person. Like, just go read it. Go read it. Just do it, please. Oh, I can't end the video there. I mean, I could, but I probably should say I've got my social media down below in the description. You can check out my Bookstagram, my book Twitter. I've got a bookshop.org page where you can buy these books and support American local businesses. And also I get a small portion of that to support my book buying addiction that I'm pretty sure we all have. Yeah. Go check this series out. What are you waiting for?